Hello, we're Nerds of the West, and today we're giving you a review of Armello, the board game. This has been adapted from the video game, and we're going to give you our thoughts so you can get an idea of how this game plays, what is going on, and whether or not this game might be right for you. At the end, we're going to rank it on our Nerds of the West ranking board, because that's how we review games here. Not an objective 1 to 10 scale, but just, if given the opportunity, what we would prefer to play. It gives us an opportunity to compare art and playtime and table space and all the little intangibles that matter for a game. This review has been sponsored. All our streams, everything has been sponsored this week, so keep that in mind. We, the people that are going to be doing this, we have a Bree.
I'm a Kingslayer.
We have a Jimmy.
Not just saying hello.
We have a Lachlan.
My ratatouille went everywhere.
Lachlan, can you give us a brief overview of this game, what is going on, and how the people might need to know about it?
So, in this game, you take a different faction, and you start in the corners of the board. Your objective is to gain points through completing objectives, which will be on the opposite side of the board to where you are, getting to a specific space, by slaying your opponents or slaying enemies, which is the Bane or the Knights. And then once you reach 30 victory points, you can go and attack the king, and that will give you the win by defeating the king. Or if you have enough points, you can make your way all the way up to 70 and get an instant win through that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get victory points in this game, and it's all about on your turn, you've got like 3 moves, you've got your cards to play your actions to better your chances, and you can explore, fight, complete quests. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to see. You can't do it all in one turn.
Bit of deck building, bit of rolling dice. I'm going to start because this is a video game adaptation, but they haven't just taken art from the video game. The art of this game, the graphic design, how it's laid out on a map. I've seen a lot of games with a very cluttered map, but this is surprisingly clear for how much green there is on the board.
Very true.
The art's really cool.
It's nice.
It's pretty.
It's also not like symmetrical either, which I like, because like that's got 4 planes right there, whereas that's 3, that's 2, that's...
I do like the characters as well. Like it pleases me. It pleases me.
The art design for everything, obviously they had a decent starting point from the video game's art, but they've done a really nice job at making it work. And as Jimmy pointed out partway through the game, the component quality is really good. Once the art is out of the way, how are we feeling about the gameplay and your choices? Because there are a lot of choices in this game.
Sorry?
You don't know you. So
well, so I have not actually played the video game. So I came to this with like a completely blank slate.
You came to it as a board gamer, playing a board game?
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed it. I think that I like that there is so many different ways to be able to win the game and gain points and everything. So even though, for example, Lachlan got completely KO'd early on in terms of victory points, and I wasn't doing much better for the second half of the game, we still had options. It wasn't like, oh, well, we're just playing and there's no reason to keep playing.
Oh, exactly. Like where you're on 30 points, I'm only a little bit ahead of you.
Yeah.
And then Tom and James are at the top end, but
we had options.
You had the option to go slay the
kill the king.
Whereas they decided that they were going to gun for the 70 points.
And I like that there's different ways to gain victory points as well. So like
a lot of it comes down to, do you go for combat and build your deck towards combat, or do you go for movement to then pick up either spirit stones or quests?
And that's the whole thing. Like you picked up spirit stones, and that's what put you ahead of
gave me an extra 15 points.
Jimmy, because before that, Jimmy was
the combats at the end is what really
and that included.
Yeah.
So so personally, I like that there was so many ways to be able to.
Personally torn, because there are so many ways, but everything is based on RNG. And it's fair because it's based on RNG. But if your quests aren't on the opposite side of the board, instead they're one of the quests that it goes, it's one of these 2 places, whatever's further away from you, you are closer to your quest. If your quest is then closer to someone else's quest, you have more opportunities to fight. And if you unfortunately choose the wrong fight, all you're doing is handing points to another person, which means if things don't go your way with the RNG, someone else rockets ahead on points and can very quickly rack up a lot of points. And it's not that I don't like it, it's just that I feel like it needs to be pointed out that there is so much RNG in this game. If you are looking for a strategic Euro game, this is not it. This is your quest is going to be in a random spot. Other people are going to be in a random spot.
That's very true.
The dice is going to be
4X.
random. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is that kind of game. I personally don't like that kind of game, but I enjoyed this.
I'm just thinking, if we're thinking statistics as well, statistically, Lachlan had really, really bad dice rolls.
Lachlan was set up for good fights and then never had them.
I mean,
It can happen, but
back on Tom's point about things being spread out wherever they are, just because your quest is all the way on the other side of the map does not mean that you have to do that quest. There are other things that you can do. You can go to the dungeon and explore.
you can
really
have
is
spirit
that
points. You can fight other people.
unlike the video game where every character is quite varied. In this, everyone's quite similar. There's only like one or two minor changes for it, so then everyone can get in combat, everyone can do dungeons. It doesn't matter. There's no like the stealth mechanic's not in there. You're expected to pick up things on the way. You're not expected to take the most direct path because exploring dungeons and finding Banes is worth it. Fighting guards is worth it. They're worth the points, and they might not be players, but you can work through them as opposed to having to avoid them. So there's everything on the way to it. It does take a while to get there, and you can do build into movement and then get blocked by players and killed on the way there.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's why I enjoyed it, because as much as there is a lot of RNG, there is so much variation that every turn, as much as it might take a while for turns to come back around, every turn feels like you're doing something, and every turn is a really fun puzzle to figure out through the dice that you roll at the start to then have a little bit of extra things, the cards that you might have in your hand. The one bit of variation that I didn't like as much was the quests. I never drew quests that actually helped me, but that's just like variation.
Since we're all drawing from the same deck, like it's like exactly, it's luck of the draw. I think, like for instance, one of my favorite updates is that peril change. Actually made perils worthwhile, although you got some bullshit.
I got easy perils. Lachlan got perils that ruined his deck early. Like there is.
I got pushed back by a peril at one point. Like, that's great, but like it actually then makes like Bree's heading into that corner. I put like at the time she was close to the lead, so I put a peril there, and there was a Bane and a guard, and it was just like, cool. That's going to make getting to that objective so much harder. That's like, it's nice interaction that can completely change what you're going to do in your hand. So it actually makes planning for your turn harder, which is kind of frustrating for me.
Which balances things.
I like being organized and being like, cool, I know what I'm doing on my turn.
On that, we mentioned it in the playthrough, but I would have loved to see that every single turn either guards or Banes activate.
Yes.
It is a random chance because you roll the dice, and if there's nothing in there, it doesn't happen.
Reroll.
And as this game is in a beta mode, things might be changed, but I would love to see more.
I think maybe if during the dawn the guards automatically move, and during
that's how it works in the video game.
Yeah, but that's what I'm like. That would have been good.
Well, I mean, okay, that's.
But
if we want to dive into that, it's either they both move during dawn or dusk, depending on which NPC it would be, or it's you roll and say there's one in this quadrant, there's one in that quadrant, but at least one of them's going to move.
Yeah,
so it's either both of them
we
or
rolled a
one
lot
of them.
of times.
See, what
that there
I
was
would
nobody in there.
do to change it is at dawn, you roll the dice. If there's nothing in there, you spawn a guard there.
Yes,
And if it's dusk, it's a Bane.
That would be better.
Especially because guards don't come up nearly as much.
Yeah, it's only through decree cards, which are a random event at the start of the round, the start of the dawn, because there's a dawn and a dusk phase.
And then you would max out, or you could limit the number of available guards.
It then gives everyone a chance to also
grows.
fight the Banes too. Like, so it's not just one person dungeon diving getting lots of Banes, or one person who's just cleaning them up. Like, because that's an easy 3 points plus experience tokens and all that.
So how do you guys feel about the cards and the deck building side of things?
I really liked the deck building side of it. It was interesting because a lot of you can only most of the time scrap cards from your hand, which is not how a normal deck building game would work. You would normally like to scrap the cards that you've already played, but in this game, because you're only playing 2 cards each round, the cards that are left in your hand are the cards that you probably don't want to play. So you're scrapping the cards that you're not using, and it works really well to quickly thin out your deck.
To get more cards.
I think the only change I would make to the trashing is that you can trash without buying, because you have to trash to replace, which meant that obviously my deck got filled up quite fast, and it's like, I don't want to trash something, but I also don't want to buy something. Like I need a trash to reduce the cost, but then I'm getting more cards. And deck building is all about filtering out the cards and not clogging it with more stuff. So while there's lots of things that give you more combat, they give you more, you're just filling it with better versions of your cards, but you're not going in an avenue.
When we ran out of Magic, because I had the massive stack, there was nothing I wanted in there because I wasn't buying equipments and stuff. It's like I'm leaning into the Magic. I wanted to explore that side of it.
Yep.
But a lot of the spells coming out were like, well, they're more of an action spell, not so much a combat boon. And it was just like, I don't want X.
There is variation in the cards, but once again, the RNG, those cards can come out, and that is going to happen sometimes. And I think that's where my one flaw with this game is. I don't mind RNG games. They're not personally what I prefer to play, but I prefer them to be shorter. This game is probably looking at a half an hour to 45 minutes per player playtime. Because as much as it says you can start your turn while other people are doing stuff, you kind of can't because everyone's going to be talking. There's too many moving parts. You need to track everything. As a 2 hour to 3 hour game, every turn is enjoyable, but there are a lot of turns and it's going to take a while to play.
When someone's doing their market phase, when someone's doing their market phase, I like to watch what they're buying. I like to know what they're putting in their deck.
Exactly.
Because that's critical information.
Yeah. So
I don't actually like having my turn because I'm distracted.
Yeah. There was a turn where I had to pay attention to if you used your dice or not, because if you didn't use it, you could stop what I was going to do. So I couldn't just keep going with everything. I had to wait and see.
I've lost my thought.
We're talking about...
It's fine.
Yeah.
No.
If it comes back around, it does. Combat. Once again, very swingy, but very fun. Exploding dice is cool. Your choices of combat cards, and especially I really liked that you had the option with the dice to either use them for the base points that they give you, or have some that will activate your cards for you. I thought that was a really neat mechanic that added just an extra layer onto the deck building.
I hated that mechanic.
Yeah?
That was my least favorite mechanic of the game. I have no problem with the combat being that you get so many dice, you roll your dice, and then you tally them up. And combat is very hit or miss because the underdog, there might be an underdog who could beat the gladiator or, Achilles or whatever. So dice rolling in combat is fine, and that's perfect for RNG. It makes sense. It's fine. I had a pretty poor game of that, but I agree with dice being combat. But the Armello dice, as an entire mechanic, should just be cut, in my opinion.
Not a fan.
Because it was, you rolled, they might give you something, they might not give you something. They could be useless, they could not be useless. And you can roll for 3 or 4 turns and not use them ever. And you have to have the exact symbol that you need on the bottom of your card. And they're random on the bottom of the cards. It's not like combat, defense is defense. It was kind of like, it was added and it just adds time and it doesn't add anything important or constructual to the game.
So would you say get rid of the Armello dice or just say get rid of the bonus buff to the card? Because I actually really like the Armello dice themselves.
I think the Armello dice, get rid of them, because you would then substitute it into cards. So then you're more of a deck builder and you're not relying on these dice. You would just have more movement cards, be able to play extra cards in your turn as a deck builder, and not have the dice to then have to try and be like, oh, I need an extra move, so I'm going to need to have the wild. Like you said, when you had too much magic, rolling the thing, or if you want to draw a card, it's like, yeah, drawing an extra card is fine and all, but you could have draw a card on the card or on, like, when you activate an ability.
So, but then also you need to, you have to, you're putting down only like 2 cards.
Yeah, I get that.
So, I guess
cards.
I understand that, but the card with the actions for the cards, that turns over really quickly because I didn't have any issues with the amount of cards you could play or the amount that you could draw, because you can, at the end of your turn, discard any number of your cards to then hopefully draw something better. But the deck building was a little bit on the weaker side, because every time you discard a card, you're filling your deck, as opposed to deck building where you're reducing the number of cards you've got to make your deck more synergetic. So that is probably where I'd say lean more into deck building and less into dice rolling, and keep dice rolling just for combat.
Yeah. Hey, works for you. All right, let's have a think about where we'll place it on our board. So once again, Jimmy, if you want to grab that for us.
Yep.
as I said, this is our list of games that we have played this year. We will re-rank it at the end of the year. And it is based on, if given the opportunity, what we would prefer to play. So let's just take into account table space, play time, how much we actually enjoy it. I personally, I liken this to the Witcher board game that we played last year in terms of cards played, dice rolling, fighting, and basically dudes on a map. The Witcher was more thematic. It had better story going for it, but it's not on the list for this year. It's just the closest comparison that I have. With the right group of people, I think this game can be really fun. It's just that little bit long for what I personally prefer in a game. So I'm going to put it below Space Base. That's not necessarily a bad place. It's just that that's how our list works. Lachlan, what are you thinking?
So I really enjoyed this game. I love the art. I like the thematics of it. I like all the different gameplay elements, deck building. The combat is fun. The exploration is good. There's lots of things to do. You don't have to do everything. I think everyone gets in the mindset that you have to do you have to do this, you have to do that. There are like small improvements that could be made, but you can dabble in everything and everyone sort of starts on an even playing field. It is nice in that regard. I think the length of the game, like Tom said, he felt like there was 40-minute turns, but I feel like none of my turns took longer than 5 minutes. My turns were really fast. I had no issues with that. There's a lot of moving components and it can bog down. So I think it could be played faster, and I don't think that it would necessarily be a 2-hour game played on your fourth or fifth time through this experience. And it'd be something that I'd love to show more people because it has a lot of good things to present. So I think I would put it somewhere in the middle, probably above Bark Avenue. And I don't think that the time frame really comes into it for me as much. Yes, it was long, and our previous playthroughs have been long, but that's because there's so many different mechanics and components. But I also liked that there were so many different mechanics and components because all the decks were separate things and they needed to be separate things. You couldn't have everything doubling up on one card and all being in one deck.
One quick point of that, reward cards were awesome. I love that there was a special deck that was cards that were better suited to your player. Really cool.
Yeah.
You want me to go next?
Yeah.
All right. So, long turns. I definitely had long turns. Things had happened that had changed, and that's what made me have to think through what I wanted to do. However,
were they long, short, or medium?
I would say, probably medium, really. I guess.
I don't think that was as long as other games.
I know, I do kind of think, a full rotation can take a while, but there's so many board games that take forever. I kind of agree with where you've put it. I would probably put it above Trick Draw in the sense of I really like Trick Draw, really quick game. Great. I have friends coming over. That's the game we're going to warm up on. Awesome. Cool. We're here to now play Armello. That's I've got a game set up ready to play. That's what we're going to play. I really enjoyed the deck building side of it. I know what changes I would like to see in terms of combat magics and stuff. Don't know what's actually in the deck, so I don't know. The rolling of dice for combat, I'm fine with that. I actually like the Armello dice. I do kind of agree with contributing them towards combat. You could probably drop that. But I like you can move a guard, you can move a bane, have a card draw. Like, it's just a little boon that it doesn't really cost anything. Everyone gets it.
If we went down your path of adding more guards or adding more bane, then it would be more influential of moving those things. But when there wasn't anything to move, there's no reason that it was useless.
Well, stealing a prestige.
Prestige is fine.
And dropping a peril. Like that's
you probably lost a good 5-6 points over the
I 100% lost about 5-6 points there. And I put
why we stayed on the lower deck for so long.
Yeah, because I was literally 1 point off and then I'm down 4 points from there. Like, I genuinely enjoyed the game. I think it's a good shout out to the video game. With enough changes that it is its own separate entity. I would put it above Trick Draw, I reckon.
Yeah. What about you, Brie?
Similarly, I'd put it kind of like in the middle here, so either above Trick Draw or above Pyramido. I don't play a lot of deck builders, but I really, really enjoyed this game because I usually have problems keeping track of my cards. So this was kind of nice to be able to like so easily cycle through them and also be able to like toss cards. And I just love the thematics of it as well. And I actually enjoyed the Armello dice at the start of your turn, just having a little extra thing that you're able to do. I agree, having them in the combat, it's like there was a few times that I'd go, oh, do I want to spend these now or save them for combat? And then you'd like look through your cards and you're like, it's not really worth it. So I'd end up just using them. But no, I really, really enjoyed it. I will say the fact that it has so many components, it would be nice to kind of
simplify it in some way.
Simplify it, or other games that I know that have so many components have then come out with like some sort of on-table organization.
Yeah.
So that like
a
it's a Kickstarter, I imagine that
so that might be
exactly,
version, and that's what I'm thinking, that they might like move towards that. Just because I sat next to Tom and I ended up having to take one of his pile of cards because he didn't have enough space.
Yeah, I mean. With that component thing, just one note, because we discussed at the start of the game about how there's several different piles, but all the backings are the same.
Yes.
They have to be the same because there's your experience cards, then there's the reward cards, and then there's the market cards. And they all have to be the general Armello backing because they end up in your deck, so you can't tell what's coming up. But they're easy enough to
they're all really separate on the front.
At the end.
I believe everyone's different personal cards have a different outline and different symbols.
You've got different art in the middle. You've got a different
literally
cloth.
got your little like you've got your person on there.
Yeah. So lots of cool stuff going on. That is our thoughts on Armello. Let us know if you're going to check it out. Let us know if you have any thoughts on it once you have played it in the future. And you can come and join us live for the next time we talk about board games. We do this live every single Saturday morning, Australian Western Standard Time. We've been Bree,
Jimmy, things.
Guru.
Lachlan.
I had the best game.
My name is Tom, and we will catch you next time.